Here we have a standard lexical decision task, starting with some instructions, followed by a series of practice trials, and then we go into the real trials, where there's about 200 different trials that take place. And what I'm going to be showing you today is to condense or simplify all of these trials into this type of view. So we have instructions at the top again. We have the practice trials, but all the practice trials are condensed into this one page. And then same with the real trials, all 200 plus conditions or trials are condensed into one page, and all the trials are going to be stacked into this trial editor view, and each row represents a trial. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is create the initial trial, the first trial that will then act as a template that runs all the trials through. So what we want to do is create all the stimuli placeholders. So we want to create a text box for the fixation points. Then we want to create an image file for the primer, which in this case is either a happy face, a sad face, or a neutral face. We want to create a text box for the target. So the order in which things will be presented would be the fixation point will be displayed for half a second, then followed by the prime for 100 milliseconds, and then once the prime disappears, we are going to show the target after that for an indefinite period of time until the user responds. So those are the first three stimuli that are going to be flashed in front of the user's eyes. The next thing we want to provide is a way for the respondent to interact with the experiment. And we do this using buttons in this experiment. So we want to create a couple buttons, one for the word categorization and one for the non-word categorization. Essentially, a target word will be displayed for the user, and then the user will need to categorize and say whether or not that word is a word or a non-word. And then we also want to create a way for the users to move on to the next trial. So we created a third button. And this is optional, but you can create a couple text boxes just to show the user or remind the user which key press goes or corresponds with each button. So in the non-word case, we're using the keyboard shortcut C, and then we're telling the user C equals not word. So once we've created this initial trial, we're going to use this as a framework or a template in which we're going to run all the multiple trials through. So we've added the stimuli to the canvas, and we've added the labels. Now we are going to import all of the trials into the trial editor. So we're going to pull up the trial editor by clicking the button, and then each column represents a different variable. So in this case, the target is the target word, the face is the prime, and then each row represents a different trial. So let's just go back to the original experiment, and let's show you how I basically imported it over. So if we go to the first one here, and we look at the trial editor, they have the word dopey as the first trial and target, so we can copy and paste that. And then we know the face that is being displayed is a happy face. So the first thing we want to do is copy and paste the word dopey as the target. But because the image is a local image, we need to find a way to upload it so that we can grab a URL link. And the site that I like to use to do this is called postimage.org. So essentially, it's a file hosting or file sharing and file hosting site. So you simply just click on Browse, select the face or the image that you would like to upload, and then hit upload. And then it'll redirect you to a page where you can retrieve the web link. And this is really good for the platform because it can grab the image from the internet when it is needed. And it makes it a very fast process. So we basically take that URL that we just copy and pasted, and we plug it in here. And then, so it'll grab this URL to display as the image, and then the target will display. So I repeat this process for each of the other target words until they're all complete. So we have 12 to be exact trials in the practice block. So now we have all the trials set up, but the last thing we need to do, the third thing, is to link the stimuli on the canvas to the trials in the trial editor. So the way we do that is by creating formulas and functions that correspond between the two. Let's start in the order in which things are being displayed. So firstly, the fixation point is a constant throughout all trials, so this does not need to be modified. The first thing that does need to be modified is the face, or the image that is going to be displayed as the prime. In this experiment, we have three different primes. It's going to be a happy face, a sad face, or a neutral face. So you want to upload all of your faces to a file hosting site like PostImage or Flickr or anything else that you like to use, and make sure you grab the specific web link. It's going to give you a couple. This is the generic one. You want to go for the direct link, and use the direct link and paste them in here. Once this is all set up, then we're going to link them by copying and pasting this variable name here, and we're going to link it to its formula. So we're going to edit the first box called the image source, and we're going to put the variable face in here. And what it does is it tells the placeholder, the image box here, to grab the images from the source face, and the face is going to be held in the trial editor as a variable here, and it's just going to go down all of these rows and grab whatever image corresponds to that particular trial. The next thing we want to do is to do the same thing with the target. So we're going to go to the formula section here, and we're going to take the word target, and then the target has to be exactly identical to the variable in the trial editor, so it knows which column to grab the trials from. So similarly, we would copy and paste it there, and now it knows to grab all the target words from the variable target in the order in which things are displayed here. But if you want to randomize it, we can randomize it by going to the practice trials or the main page, and then just hitting randomize order. So now we've sequenced the fixation point, the image that's prime that's going to be displayed, as well as the target word. The next thing we want to do is to create a function that would allow feedback for the user. Now I've created two feedback boxes. The first one relays the respondent selection. So whatever the respondent chooses, either word or non-word, this feedback box will tell them that their response has been received, and will tell them what response they selected. The second feedback box relays the correct answer. So basically, no matter what the respondent chooses, the feedback box will tell them the correct response should have been, word or non-word. So let's start with the selection feedback, and let's go from there, and then I'll show you how to do it with the second feedback box after. So the first thing we want to do is to create a formula for the display text. And this display text, whatever you put into this text box here, will override whatever text was initially put in as a label in here. So we are going to put in you chose and then variable. We renamed the variable selection, but now we need to tell the system when to grab the selection variable. So it makes sense that in this experiment, the selection is made after the user responds to or categorizes the target by responding to one of the buttons. So we are going to go to both buttons. Let's start with non-word and go to the events tab, which is essentially an action tab. So what we're going to do is create a formula called do selection equals response, and the particular response is going to be the variable name response and then non-word. So essentially what this does is the user is going to make a selection, either non-word or word. This is going to create a chain reaction of things to happen. It's going to tell the selection to grab the response, which is non-word, and then display the selection here. So if the user chose non-word, it would say you chose non-word. Similarly, on the other button, we add the same function here, so that if the user chooses non-word or word, it has the same reaction to display the selection that they made. So I'm just going to back it up again and go through it one more time just so it's a little bit more fluid and clear. The selection box, we're going to create a text to be displayed called you chose selection. The selection is going to be either non-word or word depending on which button they click on. So if they click on the word button, when the word button is clicked, it will perform or do selection equals response, and the response is word. The same on the left side with non-word. It's going to do selection equals response, and the response is found under properties, and the response is whatever you name the variable here. If we rename this something else, then we would have to change response to be something else as well. But in this case, it's going to grab this variable response and input the value non-word into this box here. Now let's move on to the second feedback, and it's going to follow a similar logic. The first thing we want to do is create two functions, one called feedback text and one called correct. And what this is going to do is the feedback text is going to grab whatever text that needs to be displayed under feedback text, and it's going to say something similar or to the effect of you or the correct answer is, and then correct is going to be the correct answer. So let's just pause there for a second. I'm going to move on to the next step, and then I'll go through this process again just to clarify. So we're going to go back to the button, to the events tab, and when the button is clicked, we're going to do feedback text equals the correct answer is. And then we're also going to perform the function do correct equals LDT, which is the correct answer. So just to connect the two dots together, when the non-word button is pressed or when the word button is pressed, we're going to perform two functions related to the feedback box here. The first is we're going to grab the phrase the correct answer is and display it in place of feedback text here. So instead of, because we just created a variable which acts as a function, it's going to replace the first line with the correct answer is, and then similarly with the last function correct equals LDT, we're going to display LDT or the correct here, but what answer is correct is going to be displayed in the trial editor. So LDT provides the correct answer. We know that, and then we put it in, we input if it's going to be word or non-word as the correct answer. The system knows to grab the variables from LDT, that the correct answers from LDT, which are stored in the trial data view. So I know it's a bit of a long chain. Feel free to repeat this video several times if you need to make it clear, or email us to get some additional support. But that essentially creates or closes the loop for both feedback boxes. So let's give this a quick demonstration or preview so we can see how it works in action. So we have the instructions first. We're just going to click through that. So we see that the first word that is being displayed is called Pimpsy. Let's just say it's a non-word because it is a non-word. But right now you'll see that there are certain placeholders here. We can get rid of this just by deleting the text. But as soon as we click the word or the button, non-word or word, then both of these text boxes will be replaced by the functions we created earlier. So let's click non-word. And it says you chose non-word. The correct answer is non-word, which is great. Then we go to the next trial. Oculin. Now we know this is a non-word, but let's say it's a word. So the feedback text will tell us that you chose word, but the correct answer is non-word. And all of this will be stored in the results page so that you can easily see what the respondent made, as well as what the correct selection should have been, as well as what the target word was. So you can do all your analysis and pivot tables using that. Let's just do one more just to kind of drive the point home. Let's click non-word, non-word, you chose, or the correct answer is word. The last thing I want to point out here is once you kind of create the template, and if you like the template, you can easily duplicate it by clicking the main view here, and then going over to the right side and click duplicate. This is useful for any experiment that you have two or more variations of the same study. In this case, we have practice trials with about 12 trials in total, but the framework with all the the formulas and the variable lists, those are going to stay for the most part the same. So if you didn't want to build it from scratch for the real trials or in all the conditions, you can just create one template, duplicate it, and then use this as a starting point. You can then open the trial data view and delete all the trials that were originally there, and you can create new ones. You can also modify things, such as in the real trials, you might not want to give feedback, so you might just make it invisible, and then that just removes the feedback away. Or maybe you don't want to let them know or remind them what the key presses are. Then you can make it invisible as well, or you can simply delete it. Either option works. The last thing I want to show you is just what the results page would look like. So we have the practice trials first. It provides the URL link for the image that was being shown. In this case, we can tell it was sad face. We know the target word is postal, which is a non-word. The correct answer is a non-word. And the response made was a non-word. And the response was made in 2.8 seconds or 2800 milliseconds. And then we have a couple other things that we created in the functions and formulas below. And then if we keep going down, we can see that the real trials start here because the feedback is taken out. So the neutral face was shown first for the word drawl. It was actually a word, and the respondent chose non-word and using this reaction time. So all the results will be displayed down here and can be accessed through the dashboard and downloaded into Excel or CSV format for analysis. And so this basically condenses and simplifies the tree view to make it a lot cleaner and a lot nicer to edit. For instance, if you had created your framework here using all these different trials, and then you wanted to move the buttons to the corner, for example, then you would have to do it for every single trial, which can be extremely time consuming and tedious. But using this method, if you create one initial trial and then convert that trial into a template or framework, then all you need to do is change or modify things once, and then every trial thereafter is going to use that same template or framework to display itself. So I hope this helps you. If you have any questions, please email us at hello@cognilab.com.